Parashat Wed Jul. Shabbat Nachamu. The Torah in Parashat Wed Jul makes a very important promise to the Jewish people. And that's really the source of our ultimate comfort. The Torah promises that after all of these things will come upon us at the end of the days, God says to us, V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha v'shomata b'kolo, you return to the Lord your God and hearken unto his voice. Tiel rachum Hashem Elokecha, because the Lord your God is a God of compassion. Lo yarbecha v'lo yashchitecha, he will not forsake you and he will not destroy you. V'lo yishkach et brit avotecha asher nishbah lahem, he'll never forget the covenant with your fathers, which he has sworn unto them. And so there will always be a return, and a restoration, and a rebirth, and eventually redemption. There's a very fascinating phrase, batzar lacha, when it's really difficult for you. Umitzaucha kol hadvarim ha'ele, all of these words of the Torah will find you. The Torah will find you. Will find the Jews wherever they may be. And they will return to it, and through it, return to Israel. I'm taking the phrase the way I believe the Malvin takes it. But Tzar Lacha, when it's truly difficult for you, Umetzaucha kol hadvarim ha'ele, the words of this Torah will find you. Let me record an amazing historical incident. You know, perhaps one of the most important single events in 1947, 1948 was the fact that the United States accepted the resolution of the United Nations to accept a portion of the land of Israel. That the United States voted for this partition against the will of the State Department, against the entire Arab League. But that was the initial impetus for the Declaration of Independence. And that acceptance was the sound heard around the world. The only time, really, that the United States and the then Soviet Union voted together to accept the establishment of the State of Israel. I said the entire State Department of America was against it. The president at the time was President Roosevelt. President Roosevelt actually wanted it to be a Jewish state because he wanted a home other than America for the many refugees, mostly sick, Muslim men, who would come out of the concentration camps and had no place to go. Right after the Yalta Conference at the end of the Second World War, a very sick President Roosevelt went to visit King Faisal of Saudi Arabia. He spoke to him about the possibility of America's recognition of the Jewish state, to partition the West Bank, a state for the Palestinians and a state for the Jews. King Faisal was absolutely against it. But President Roosevelt promised him that he would not recognize Israel against the wishes of the Arab League. This was the last memo that President Roosevelt sent to the State Department before he died. President Truman took over. President Truman felt in his heart that he wanted to recognize the Jewish state. There was so much opposition, especially from the State Department, that was very, very much wed at that time to the Arab League and to Arab oil. Marshall was then the Secretary of State. Marshall warned Truman, if you recognize Israel, I will campaign against you in the next presidential election. President Truman was beside himself. He asked for 3 days not to be disturbed by any messages whatsoever. He had to think about what to do. At the end of the 3 days, he decided to recognize Israel. And that decision significantly turned the tides of history. What made him decide? He gave the reason almost in a hint when he received a special award from the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York. He explained it in greater depth when his memoirs finally came out. Not such a long time ago. You see, President Truman was a born-again Christian. He loved the Bible and especially the Old Testament. I had the privilege of twice walking with him in his retirement through Central Park, and all we talked about were biblical verses. He writes in his memoirs that he spent those 3 days rereading the Bible. And he saw how the Bible loved King Cyrus of Persia, who gave permission to the Jews after the destruction of their first temple to return to the land of Judea. At the end of the 3 days, President Truman writes in his memoirs, he wants to be the second Cyrus. He wants to go down in history as the individual who was responsible for the Jewish return to Israel.